Almost 100 years ago, Albert Einstein told us that we could not solve our problems with the same consciousness we had when we created them. Despite this warning by one of the smartest people on the planet, we continue to employ outdated assumptions, opinions, and beliefs without much thought to their validity or their relevance in our world today. Einstein further warned us that everything has changed except our modes of thinking, and that we are headed for major catastrophes. Winston Churchill said, "We are shaping the world faster than we can change ourselves, and we are applying to the present the habits of the past." Hello, my name is John Renish. I'm the founder of FutureShapers, a learning organization with a vision to transform how we live and work in the world today. FutureShapers is about changing the existing paradigm of thought to one that enables us to see the world and ourselves in a new way, a way in which we can bring about a future that is environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, and socially just. If we want to change the dominant paradigm in this world today, we need to first understand what paradigms are, how they are formed, how and why they change, and what are the characteristics of the emerging paradigm. A paradigm is the story we tell ourselves, the way we think about our reality. It explains how and why things are the way they are. It includes a set of beliefs, opinions, and assumptions that support a particular worldview, a collective way of holding things intellectually so they make sense. As we know, beliefs, opinions, and assumptions change with the times, often becoming obsolete. When this happens, a paradigm based on these underpinnings starts losing legitimacy. It becomes suspect as a valid way of explaining things anymore. It stops making sense. When this happens, people have different reactions. Some may remain oblivious and go on as usual. Others may wonder if the world is going mad, and others will meander in the gap between these two extremes. Uncertainty prevails. Chaos seems all too common. Disorientation is commonplace. The old paradigm is losing its legitimacy. It can no longer be relied upon as a way to make sense of things. This can generate panic for some. A paradigm's life begins with some ideas that explain and give legitimacy to the story, the worldview, the explanation that makes the most sense. Some of these ideas fall away like seeds that fall on fallow ground. Others take hold and eventually merge to form a worldview that tells a story that better explains how and why things are. Once it is accepted as legitimate, the new paradigm continues to be more widely accepted. This can go on for decades, centuries, or even millennia. Eventually, however, paradigms can start losing credibility. This is when people might start challenging their legitimacy. As this older paradigm is failing, some people are thinking about what a new worldview may look like. And in this gap between the failing old and the not quite adopted new is where the chaos, disorientation, uncertainty, and even panic occurs. One historic example of a failed paradigm is the shift from widespread acceptance that the world was flat, despite the ancient Greeks theorizing it was actually a sphere. It wasn't until 15th century explorers sailed beyond the ocean's horizon and returned months later that people started to figure out the ancient Greeks had it right over 2 millennia ago. Another example of a paradigm shift that took nearly as long was how we once thought about how disease was spread. For nearly 2 millennia, people believed that disease was spread by foul odors. It wasn't until 1876 when it was finally proven that bacteria cause diseases, not bad odors. A third historic example of a paradigm shift was the Copernican revolution. It took a couple of centuries for Copernicus's ideas that the sun was actually the center of the known universe, disproving the Church's decree that Earth was the center. This shift took longer than it might have due to the Church's insistence that they had it right, and few were willing to challenge the Church's authority. As with most change, not all people become aware of paradigm obsolescence at the same time. Some see it sooner than others.
Those who see it soonest usually are the ones who start looking for what will make up the new paradigm, the worldview that will be more viable and have more validity in the future. Shifting from one paradigm to another does not invalidate every aspect of the former paradigm. Some aspects may make the transfer to the new, but those aspects which are outmoded are replaced with more up-to-date assumptions and beliefs better suited to the new current reality.
Now, let's look at what happens when an established and accepted paradigm starts to lose credibility and doubters begin to envision a more accurate worldview. Many simply will deny there is anything going on. They ignore or argue against any evidence that the old is failing.
Of those who admit that there's something going on, some people might be tempted to shore up the failing paradigm, hiring consultants and experts of various kinds, in the hope that it remains credible.
A few might be using their energies, envisioning what is emerging, what may be a more legitimate worldview. Some will try to explain the changes, but within the old context, where it still makes sense to them.
Typically, it takes far more energy to maintain the established status quo than to seek out what wants to emerge. This energy is often more desperate. After all, most people have only known the one paradigm. It has been their worldview for their entire life, so any erosion in that perception can be very worrisome or even threatening. If that which explains everything goes away, how do we make sense of life? This can be very disconcerting, especially when this way of seeing everything is all we've ever known.
I've showed you 3 historic shifts in paradigms or dominant worldviews from the past. But what about the one we are living through right now? All around us we see evidence of how the old way of doing things is no longer sustainable. The old familiar systems are stressed and breaking down, resulting in a lot of pain and suffering. Divisiveness, mistrust, scarcity, fear, separation, incivility, perverse nationalism, and an ever-growing gap between the haves and the have-nots are just a few of the outcomes we have become all too familiar with. But it doesn't have to be this way.
With the old paradigm failing, what is shaping up to replace it? What will this new paradigm look like? And what can we see so far? An outmoded belief is that things are scarce. And for me to win, you have to lose. We have seen enormous financial wealth created by individuals and organizations where land ownership is no longer the key to wealth. Financial wealth is now a function of agreement, so that if we all agree that a stock has value, it does. So there really is no limit to how wealthy people can be or how many people can be wealthy. I can win and so can you.
It no longer needs to be a win-lose world. It can be a win-win world, provided we share the worldview that this is how it can be. As we straddle this paradigm shift today, some are still holding on to the idea for them to win, somebody has to lose. And that may be the case as long as they subscribe to that belief. But that is not how it has to be today.
Another outmoded aspect of the old paradigm to be replaced is the idea that we are separate. Science has proven beyond any doubt that we are all interconnected and interrelated as one human family. No more theory. Interconnectedness means the perception of the other is an illusion. In contrast to the mistrust and fear we have about our relationships, we now have compassion and trust for one another, knowing we are interconnected and not separate as we once believed.
Where are we in this shift, this transition from the old to the new? How far along are we in the process of gaining collective agreement that the old is outmoded and there is collective acceptance of a new emerging worldview? Obviously, some people are farther along than others.
Many are holding on fast to the old, hoping some miracle will deem it new life so they can remain loyal to it. Many of these people are doing all they can to shore up the old crumbling paradigm, adding reinforcement where the breakdowns appear to be coming.
Still others are aware that something new is trying to emerge. They may even have seen signs of it, but are keeping most of their weight on the old paradigm where it feels familiar, even if it is growing more uncomfortable.
And then there are a few who are standing in the new, as tentative as it may be, and nurturing it, helping to bring it forth, even if they are not entirely clear on how it will look. Thank you for watching this very simple overview of what paradigms are, how they serve us, how they become obsolete, and why they change. I trust this has been helpful for you in better understanding this important element for any major social change to occur. If we want change to occur in any meaningful way, we need to understand what keeps things stuck and what evokes real change. The first step in making change happen is to change the way we think. If we achieve this, we are on our way to having a world that works much better and holds much more promise for the future, for us, our children, and our children's children. Thank you for your attention.